Pluto has moved into the 28th degree of Capricorn now. A large aviary. We need to train ourselves to find intuitive clues and signs by expecting them. Awareness of spiritual messages. For the seeker, life can have a very simple directedness, overcoming struggles repeatedly and enduringly until we reach the goal, realisation. It seems unattainable and almost fanciful that we could ever actually reach the mountaintop. Yet the day comes when we do. It is inevitable if we stick at it long enough. And then the peak experience that we first had on reaching the top is replicated over and over. The peak becomes a plateau, and somehow we lose the thrill of attainment. Yet we find ourselves flooded with many realisations, the inner voices of spirit. We have learned to hear clearly. So this is all about awareness of signs and subtle metaphors in life. Management is its own fulfilment if we make common welfare our concern. The management that we're talking about here is life management, personal life management. And the sense is that the large aviary gives a sense of many birds. And birds are used metaphorically within Sufism and in many other systems to represent thoughts, ideas, the energy that goes with that too. If we think about a bird, then we see the expression of freedom and restlessness and ever-changing realities. They flit, don't they? They don't stay very long in any particular place. Very similar to the mind's operation, very similar to thought. A large aviary, many, many birds, contained, though, within the aviary. And it's very important, I think, to look at the specific words of the Sabian symbols and consider why. Why are these many, many thoughts contained? What is it that contains them? And we can see this from the 2 points of view. On the one hand, it is necessary for us to put some scope around what we're doing with the mind. You often find people who talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and they're not actually changing the way you think. They don't have an impact upon you because it's just too much and it's disconnected. And there are other people that say one word or one clear sentence and it changes your life forever. We think in a messy way, a confused way. Many birds fly around in the aviary. They're scoped into the aviary, so they don't actually experience freedom. But there's no directedness to the thoughts, so they don't actually achieve anything else either. And we have to look at whether or not we're doing that. Do we have scattered thoughts, or do we think sequentially? And there are very few people that really do think clearly. Those people tend to be professionals. You'd hate to think that a surgeon or an accountant or a lawyer did not have that ability, of course. But they're the very small minority. Most people don't really work out how to think. Now, when we do learn how to think, first of all, we stop ourselves from thinking rubbish. It would be foolish to gossip too much. It would be foolish to spend too much time on social media, especially things like Instagram and Twitter, where it's just not giving the whole message. You're trying to bring down into a very, very short message that which cannot be explained. And usually it's done for entertainment purposes. So if you involve yourself in that kind of communication, it is almost certain that your mind is going to become confused. Whereas if you actually listen to things like TED Talks or similar, you get the high level of speaker. They deliver the message that they've thought out carefully. They start with an agreed beginning. They move through logical sequential developments to the resultant conclusion that they've reached. Now, this is the way the mind likes to work. It likes to, if it wants to come up with a result anyway, it likes to know what the facts of the matter are at the beginning of a process and come up with a conclusion, an inference from that at the end of the process. And if your mind cannot do that, then, well, why not? What's stopping you from thinking in a straight line? Now, I'm not saying that that's the only way to think, and this brainstorming aspect of life is also an important attribute to a healthy mind. So that brainstorming aspect is more what we're talking about within the large aviary. Because the other way of controlling the mind is to make it small. We don't really want that. We want the mind to be controlled so that it can actually expand to a useful place, but we don't want to make it small-minded so we can't actually think new thoughts. Pluto changes everything it looks at. It's a transformative influence. So Pluto is moving us into a state of being where the mind is being changed. Specifically, we're becoming aware of new ideas, new thoughts. It may have not escaped your notice that the world has changed in a very big way, very quickly, quite recently. Well, in fact, immediately recently. In the last few years, we've had the shift in Europe of Brexit. We've had COVID. And now we've had the war in Ukraine, and soon we're going to have the implications of the war in Ukraine and all the other stuff. It's not been assimilated yet. These are big things, and we're not going to go back to how it used to be. The familiarity of life that we had a few years ago is gone. It's gone forever. Now, that's always the case. It's just much more obvious now. There's a lot more things happening, big things happening more quickly. And Pluto is responsible for this, of course. Pluto is the agency of change. And now it's saying, well, look, change how you think. Change what you think. There's more information available, and there's better ways to access it, I would say. I would say the true message, the gain that we can find within this particular degree of Pluto's transit is to change how we think, to make ourselves open to more subtle information, more nuanced interpretations, and to open up both sides of the mind, the brain, the left brain and the right brain. They do different things. Those people that can't think in a straight line need to develop that. They need to work on the left brain activities of reasonableness, proof. Why did you say that? Where's your evidence? That like accountant's measurement of things. However, those of us that are actually thinking rather more dogmatically, and we don't have open minds, then we need to open up the right brain. We need to trust that we don't have to control everything, but we don't have to put the meaning on everything. It's not widely understood that understanding itself is a control technique when the understanding that you're looking for is definitive and provable. True understanding is when you stand under something. In other words, you support something. Particularly applied to a person, when you're understanding a person, you would have an emotional rapport with them as well as an intellectual sense of what they're saying. And we don't do that very well. We haven't got that balance sorted out. And that's Pluto's job too, is to give our attention a kick when it's not directed right. So Pluto is kicking us in the direction now of the large aviary, the many birds, the what are you doing with your thoughts question. So what are you doing with your thoughts? Are you opening up to new ideas in a nuanced kind of way? Are you thinking clearly so that whatever you do perceive is checked out against the facts of the matter, that which is measurable? Those two things together create a very healthy mind. And when the right brain and the left brain are both active and alive and in good balance and doing the right thing, they kind of talk to each other. And this operation of the two sides of the brains starts to stimulate the third eye. The third eye can then open. And it's possible to then see more. You can start to read people. You can read situations. You can read yourself. You know what things mean. There are signs all around us all of the time. And you can open up the facility to make sense of those signs, to interpret them meaningfully within the context of what has gone before and what must come next. And those people that don't interpret life metaphorically, they tend to say that's nonsense. And those people who do always that, they always interpret everything metaphorically. They say things like, it was meant to be. And I don't get either of those personally. Some things are metaphorical, and you get shamanic clues in your everyday reality. And yet some of these messages just actually don't mean anything. There is such a thing as coincidence. Some things happen without meaning. If we really, really look into it, then that's kind of not true. But on the level that we're talking, some things happen and you can't interpret them. So that's what Pluto is saying. Look, work out what's meaningful and make sure it checks out against your sense of reason.